Hello, I'm astrologer coach Sonja Francis, and today we're going to be talking about a very powerful new moon that will become exact on October 14th at 1:55 p.m. New York time and 6:55 p.m. London time. And this will be a solar eclipse that becomes exact at 21 degrees of Libra. Now, 48 hours before and after an eclipse, we are experiencing heavy energetic downloads, and so it's really important to wait to set solar eclipse intentions until after these intense downloads are over. And due to the eclipse nature of this new moon, I will be recording this video in two parts. Part one will be about the eclipse content and what this eclipse entails. And part two will be about the aspects of this solar eclipse chart. So if you're a little bit more of an advanced astrologer or more curious about what else is going on with this solar eclipse, then feel free to watch part two as well. Now, I will discuss the best and most potent times to set intentions for this solar eclipse towards the end of this video, so stay tuned for that. And please use the timestamps below this video to navigate to the places in the video that interest you the most. Now, solar eclipses are extra powerful new moons that take place approximately every 6 months, 5.5 to 6 months. And this is the second solar eclipse in 2023 in this particular eclipse cycle that will be in effect until March 2025. The first solar eclipse of 2023 took place in Aries on April 20th. So think back to late April of this year and see what seeds got planted in your life in connection with the last solar eclipse. And ask yourself, did you set solar eclipse intentions on April 22nd or 23rd? Did something end or begin at that time? What have you discovered about your physical vitality and self-identity since then? And then just see what comes up, because this eclipse is now sort of like the next stage of this eclipse cycle. So we're moving to another level now. Now, this particular eclipse is an annular solar eclipse. And these occur when the moon passes between the sun and the earth, while the moon is at or near its farthest point from the earth. So it's pretty far away. And because of the distance to the earth, it appears smaller than the sun and does not entirely cover the sun during the eclipse. So often in eclipse, the moon covers the sun completely, but with an annular solar eclipse, it can only cover the disk to a certain extent. And it creates what looks like a ring of light around the moon because the moon is not big enough to cover the whole sun. Now, this eclipse will be most visible in parts of the United States, mainly Oregon, Northern California, Nevada, Utah, New Mexico, and Texas. And is also visible in Mexico and many countries in South and Central America. Now, everyone in the US will see a partial solar eclipse on October 14th. But of course, with those living further west in the US, we'll see a much bigger chunk of the sun taken out. Now, no matter where you are on the planet, however, the effects of this eclipse will be transformative globally, because the energetics of the eclipse we will feel everywhere, even if they're not visible everywhere. Now, we also addressed eclipse season and the solar eclipse in Libra in more detail in our webinar, Eclipse Season and Pluto Station. If you missed this fantastic online event, click on the link below this video to get this fabulous 1 hour and 45-minute webinar. We talked also in relationship to our own birth charts. So this is something that if you haven't seen it yet, great webinar to watch. Now, the sun and moon are connected to one of the moon nodes during an eclipse, or to both of the moon nodes. And they're alternating between North and South Node eclipses, emphasizing the evolutionary upgrades available to us during these times. And so this is the first South Node Solar Eclipse in Libra since the moon nodes have moved into that Aries-Libra polarity on July 17th of this year. And solar eclipses in particular often correspond to significant endings and beginnings. They occur close to the same degree every 19 years. And the last time we had a new moon in this particular, or a solar eclipse in this particular degree and sign, while the South Node was traveling through Libra was on October 14th, 2004. So think back to that time. We will likely experience a resonance between now and that time, but we have to remember it's just a resonance. It doesn't mean that things will repeat themselves exactly as they happened in 2004. There's just going to be an energetic similarity. So think back to the fall of 2004 and ask yourself, were there any significant endings or beginnings in your life? And what was important to me back then? And if I were to take those priorities to the next level, where would that next level find me? So just see if you can remember anything about 2004. And if there's something that occurred in the fall of 2004, then just know there's likely to be some similarities with this particular eclipse. Now, a couple of things to note for this solar eclipse chart. The new moon not only aligns with the South Node, but also with Mercury in Libra. And it also makes a quincunx to Uranus in Taurus, which is sort of like a somewhat challenging aspect, an internally challenging aspect. And it makes also an opposition to the Chiron North Node alignment in Aries. And an opposition, of course, is always a relational experience. We experienced oppositions with other people. And then Pluto in Capricorn has a potent role in this eclipse chart because it is exalted because of its station phase. And it squares the moon nodes and therefore also the solar eclipse. So squares are 90-degree aspects that mark turning points that we have to take in order to make progress. And they ask us to stretch and grow beyond who we used to be. And of course, with Pluto, that has to do with our own personal empowerment on some level. So we have to really get clear about how we want to empower ourselves so that we can make this turning point, so we can make progress in our own lives. And this might not be so easy to do, obviously, but we're going to talk about this in more detail a little bit later. Now, these are the major themes of this solar eclipse chart, and we will address all of them in more detail. But let's first talk a little bit more about eclipses. During a solar eclipse, the moon momentarily interrupts the normal flow of solar radiation. And because of that, the solar eclipse reorganizes our consciousness to a higher level. And solar eclipses indicate the beginning of a new experience or a new project or a new cycle. And this particular eclipse season started on October 4th, 10 days before the solar eclipse becomes exact, and it will end 10 days after the lunar eclipse in Taurus that follows this solar eclipse. So in other words, by November 7th, 2023, eclipse season will be over. And while eclipse season is going on, allow for these new templates to download, stay centered, do your best to ground from within, try using conscious breathing and conscious mental flexibility. And most of all, see if you can move to the observer position when it comes to the emotional and to the mental body, because there might just be a lot going on, a lot gets stirred up during eclipse season. And remember, this won't last forever. On November 7th, the downloads are completed. So you can start to breathe easily at that time again. Now, eclipses are times of uncertainty. They are Uranian in nature, and so anything could really happen between now and November 7th. But it doesn't mean that that's bad. Just because there's uncertainty doesn't mean that that's a bad thing. It is important to remember that eclipses open the door to the next level of our soul's evolution, which means that no matter what happens, it serves your soul evolution, and you have to remember that. Now, as best as you can, don't jump the gun for the next 4 to 5 weeks. If you feel compelled to do something, do your best to simply observe that urge. The exception would be if something happens organically. So if it doesn't happen because you're forcing it or pushing it or you're being impatient, but it's just happening, right? So if something happens organically, that's fine. But if you are ambivalent about a possible action, or if you're trying to push something, it's better to hold off until eclipse season ends on November 7th. Now, eclipses are a time for clarifying and affirming our highest path. So we are bound to experience a release and a recalibration of some sort, because old programs will get deleted, new ones will get downloaded. And with this eclipse, the process will be connected to one-on-one relationships, Libra, but also to our ancestral patterns that no longer serve us, and whatever helps us to take a more balanced approach to life. So, solar eclipses are an excellent time to go within to seed anything we would like to redefine or release over the next 5 months. We'll dig into this in more detail towards the end of this video when we talk about setting solar eclipse intentions. And then South Node eclipses, they ask us to release or redefine energies or attachments that no longer serve us. So they highlight past issues that need our attention so we can grow beyond our conditioning, beyond things that have happened in the past. And this happens on an individual and on a collective level. Now, since this eclipse aligns with the South Node in Libra, it asks us to release any wanting approval and any codependency with other people. Now, codependence occurs when we give up our preferences or needs to appease someone or to avoid conflict. So ask yourself, where am I afraid of confrontation, and with whom? And what's the worst thing that could happen if I spoke my truth? And am I creating more closeness with my partnerships when I get attached to having harmony or fair outcomes or cooperation? So just remember, the question here is connected to the attachment of that. So it's not about not being able to have harmony or not being able to have cooperation or fair outcomes. This is really about what happens when you get attached to those things, when you have to have them. So before I keep going on, let me just say, with these coaching questions, see if you can really just allow yourself to ask these questions during meditation or as you journal, or if you just pose the questions and allow the answers to come to you, to let this be sort of like an intuitive process rather than a mental process. It's not about finding the correct answers. It's more about allowing ourselves to align with the current energies and see what comes up intuitively. Now, we are called to focus on interdependence and become aware of our codependent tendencies. We're also invited to release or redefine a compulsive need for approval and connection. And all relationships, of course, they begin with our relationship with ourselves. Everything out there is really just a reflection of what's going on inside of you. So ideally speaking, interacting with another person is a co-creative, equal exchange. And in order for that to work, we need to be centered within ourselves, but we also need to be tuned into each other while we're responding to everything that's going on in our lives, right? Circumstances or occurrences, whatever is in the day-to-day happenings. Now, here are some valuable questions for this eclipse cycle. Remember, it's a 5.5 month cycle. What does an equal relationship look like? And where is the balancing point? And what comes up when I hear the art of relationship? Now, as Libra is the 7th sign in the zodiac, Libra represents a major turning point that invites us to investigate ourselves through the lens of other people by relating one-on-one with another person. So anything we haven't mastered from the previous 6 signs that come before Libra, right? So Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, Leo, Virgo, all of those signs come before Libra. If we haven't mastered any of those 6 signs, we bring some of that stuff to our relationships. And then we attract people who mirror back to us our relationship with ourselves. So if there's something we haven't mastered, we're likely to attract people who also have difficulties with some of these things. And so they will mirror back to us what those difficulties are, so we can learn about what we still need to work on and what we still need to accomplish for ourselves. Now, Libra invites us to see all of our issues and to resolve them and to become whole. So ask yourself, what if harmony and peace were mine to create within myself first? Now, we have a little bit more that we can talk about Libra, but I feel like it would get a little bit too long. So my members can read my solar eclipse article via the membership portal on my website, or wait for the email that I'll send out about the eclipse videos and the eclipse articles. And if you're not yet a member of my online community, not to worry, because right now you can try the first month for free of my membership. You just need to go to astrologercoach.com and sign up for the monthly universal membership. Now, before we talk about all of the aspects of the solar eclipse chart, let's talk about Pluto in Capricorn, since it plays a really crucial role in the solar eclipse chart. Now, Pluto ends its 5 months retrograde phase that began on May 1st, only 4 days before this powerful new moon becomes exact. And as I already mentioned briefly, due to this station phase, Pluto will be exalted until October 31st. However, the energies will be especially loud from October 1st until October 20th. That's when Pluto is moving very, very slowly. Now, an exalted Pluto always brings extra intensity to the table, which means we have extra intensity with this eclipse cycle. Now, Pluto urges us to build something solid, something lasting, and emotionally empowering for us and for future generations. This is true on an individual level and on a collective level. Now, remember, Pluto is an emotional empowerment process. If something is killing us slowly right now, we surely become aware of it during the Pluto station. So if we're feeling this sense of like, this is not the pressure, it's not working, or we're feeling disempowered on some level, that will become very loud during this Pluto station. Now, with such an intense and exalted Pluto in Capricorn, we have to nurture our feeling body and stay open to receiving support from familiar, trusted people as best as we can. So ask yourself, how might a tight and sustained focus on my emotional well-being support me with my long-term goals? And just for this moment, could I see if a nurturing approach feels empowering, or perhaps would help me step outside of my comfort zone? And if any of that were so, what a modest daily practice might be best that would provide that nurturing? Again, these questions, sit with them, meditate with them, journal with them. They're really wonderful to allow yourself to get more in alignment with what this eclipse is all about. Now, I will be talking about all of the planetary aspects of this solar eclipse chart in part 2 of this video, so feel free to watch that second part as well for more detailed understanding of all the planetary energies that will be impacting us over the next 5.5 months. Now, do you have an ascendant or any personal planets in 16 to 26 degrees of Libra, Aries, Cancer, or Capricorn? And if so, you're definitely going to feel the effects of this powerful new moon solar eclipse more strongly. Now, if you don't know if you have points or personal planets in those degrees and signs, then feel free to watch my video, How to Read Your Birth Chart. It will explain how to look this up in your birth chart. And also know that wherever the eclipse lands in your birth chart, the 21 degrees of Libra, that is the area of your life that will be most impacted for the next 5.5 months. Now, before we talk about setting solar eclipse intentions, I just briefly want to mention that in my next Forecasting Forum webinar, we will be diving deeper into the last lunar eclipse in Taurus, which will be exact on October 28th. Which ends the Taurus-Scorpio eclipse cycle that began November of 2021. And we will also talk about Saturn's station phase in Pisces. We will feel an exalted Saturn from October 20th until November 14th. So to align with the upcoming energies, join me live on October 27th at 5 p.m. New York time. or sign up for the MP4 video presentation if you can't join live. And to be automatically registered every month, if you want to join us every month, become a star member on my site. That is the best way to join us every month, and it's also the least expensive way. Now, let's talk about setting solar eclipse intentions. Setting intentions for a solar eclipse is a little different from a regular monthly new moon process. After all, we are setting them for the next 5.5 months for the whole eclipse cycle, rather than just for the next 28 days. And solar eclipse intentions are definitely best done 48 hours after the eclipse becomes exact, because we're still downloading new templates at the time of the eclipse. And the energies are just so intense that we want to wait until some of that has settled down a little bit before we set our intentions. Now, we also definitely do not want to send them during a moon void, of course. So the best and most potent times to set your intentions for the solar eclipse are between 1:55 p.m. on October 16th and 11:44 a.m. on October 17th. And then again, after the moon void, of course, ends, from 3:36 p.m. on October 17th until 1:55 p.m. on October 18th. Now, all of this is US Eastern Daylight Savings Time in the New York time zone. Please set powerful intentions, again, because they cover the next 5.5 months, and if possible, also align them with the Libra energy. And if you live in a different time zone other than US East Coast time, and converting time zones isn't your thing, I suggest that you can join my Facebook fan page or follow me on Twitter, as I post reminders when it's time to set your intentions for the solar eclipse. All right? So when you see these reminders pop up, then you know now I can sit down and set my intentions. Now, if you need more details on how to set your solar eclipse intentions, click the link below this video. I have an article on my website, and the link below this video will take you to that article. All right. So have a fantastic solar eclipse, and feel free to watch part 1 and part 2 of my video, and have a wonderful October and rest of your month. And if you have any questions, or if there's anything that you need, please feel free to reach out to info@astrologercoach.com. If you have any questions about your own personal chart, then I will be answering those questions via a reading. If you have more general questions, I'm happy to also answer those via email. All right, have a really good one. Please remember to raise your own vibrations as much as you can, and really take good care of your emotional, mental, physical, and spiritual well-being. All right, have a good one. I'm astrologer coach Sonja Francis. Goodbye.